Hi Frances, how are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Well, we've both been saying we're like a little bit under the weather, but excuse our voices. We're gonna keep the cameras rolling and just as we move.
This has already been pushed back like 2 weeks. Like the show must go on.
It always goes on. So yeah, we're here to chat about, your business, my business, what we're up to, and how we're kind of seeing this world of online business owners manage their ideas, manage their networks. That's something we've been jamming on a little bit offline, and we thought let's record this chat and share it with both of our worlds and see who else we can kind of reach in the process. So it's really cool to have you. We met in person probably a few months ago now at actually a networking event. And the networking event was organized by a kind of networking slash community platform called Fabric. So we're very much in that world of like small business owners who meet small business owners through the networking world in London. It's probably the best way I can describe that distinctly. But be great for you to share a bit more about yourself and your work for people who don't know you yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with mainly creative and impact-led businesses to make them organized through bespoke productivity systems built in Notion. So I guess my official title is I'm a certified Notion consultant, and my consultancy is called the Notion Bar. I've been doing that for about 5 years. I basically like to say I'm a lover of efficiency and a good time. So that sums me up, essentially.
I
Yeah.
need one of those little phrases. That's so good. So, I've been working on my business for 5 years as well this summer, and I am a coach who supports entrepreneurs with their businesses. And a lot of my entrepreneurial clients are in the earlier stages and or pivoting. And the founders that come to me often have big ambition, but deliberately want to stay quite small and quite lean. So this kind of one person business model is quite common. That's not to say that they don't want to scale. It could be that they're scaling through IP or through media or partnerships or a lean team, but they're not looking necessarily to like raise investment and grow a big organization. And so a lot of what they're offering is like selling their expertise, selling their time, and it's kind of what you're doing as well. And so we have a lot of kind of crossover. And also, I'm a Notion lover. I built everything on Notion from day one of starting my business. So let's talk about Notion. I think a lot of people are curious to start. Well, I'm curious that we start here. How do you feel like Notion has evolved since you've been working in the space, especially like with the small business owners in mind?
Oh, it's crazy. I think it's now gaining a lot more steam in the small business community. Like when I started out, it was mainly, I would say, like tech startups. It still largely is like tech startups who use it, but it's been really cool to go to events now, and especially in London, and people know what I'm talking about. So that's quite cool to see. And I think the reason why small business owners love it so much as well is because you can basically build your own personalized productivity system. So everyone is trying to be scrappy and save money in terms of like how many subscriptions they're signed up to, but also because they're staying small and scrappy, their processes tend to be quite niche. And so out of the box tools like Asana or Monday, etc., don't necessarily like work for them as much. So yeah, it's been really cool to see its evolution of, and obviously just see how much Notion has come on in terms of what it can do. Like it feels like they're not launching something new every day. And I'm like, oh, well, this solves a problem that came up like 2 months ago, and like, oh, they fixed it. Never mind. So yeah, it's very cool to see it grow into different avenues and industries for sure.
Yeah, what I love about what you do is like you get to own this kind of niche in terms of a vertical that's already predefined. It's like, yes, it's Notion, but within that, there's so much variety of what you can support somebody on, or the types of businesses you can work with people on. And I just think what Notion have done for the small business owner is so cool because, like you say, there's so many tools out there. We can't subscribe to or have, yeah, subscriptions to multiple tools, especially when they don't integrate with one another. And it's like, hang on a minute, I'm this one person business or a small business, and suddenly my tech budget per month is XYZ. And it's like, I'm on this really legacy Notion plan, and it's like an annual fee and it's like barely anything, and it powers so much of my business. So let's get into the specifics, I guess, like um for me anyway, and this is not me prescribing this to people. This is just what has worked for me and what I'm kind of looking at right now. But I have like my CRM and Notion. I'm sure you've thought about alternatives in your work, but like from a CRM perspective, so much of what our business does is built on relationships. And if you don't have a way to track those relationships and remember
Mhm.
people, follow up with them, see where they are in the process, see what they've bought from you before, that just falls apart very quickly. And I've seen clients do this on Google Sheets, pen and paper, keeping it in the DMs. And I just don't think any of those solutions are quite fit for purpose. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got these big kind of legacy CRM systems built for large organizations where there's like multiple stakeholders talking to one client, or deals taking like months and months and months. Like I used to use HubSpot at the start. It's really designed for like big sales teams. And it was great just to still, again, have the information, much better than not having it somewhere. But now I've just stripped it all back to Notion, and it's in a database, and I just tag people. How do I know them? Are they a collaborator? Are they a client? Are they a current client? Are they a past client? Are they a membership? Like
Mhm.
a member of a program? So that's been like my main use case of Notion that I've loved lately. And then I also have like pages and folders for clients that you can share with them. So you have like your internal stuff, which I'm sure you're going to share more about from how that works. And then you have like the externally facing stuff. And something that has been cool is being able to like collaborate with clients on, okay, here's your coaching notes, but you add your notes, or you add your documents, I'll add my documents. And this like very rich history of our work together then starts to build and then lives on, that they can access beyond our work together. So those are the two things. There's many more, I think, that I'm like, oh, couldn't leave Notion without a better alternative than those two for the price that I'm paying.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I like to always say that Notion is really shines for anything you either need to track, store, or share in your business. And because it's all custom, you can connect those ideas together using relational databases. It sounds really technical, but it's really not. But you can basically just connect databases together, like tasks and projects, or clients and meetings, or invoices and projects, or vendors and events. Like you, all these things that you've got floating around in typically like spreadsheets or Google Docs, you can just bring it all together so that it's just streamlined and makes you feel like peaceful when you're trying to like do your job, basically. And so, yeah, that is pretty much what I do with my clients, is to build out custom solutions. Although probably my favorite thing, new thing that I built for myself in Notion is what we were chatting about earlier, is I built a superconnector engine for myself.
Yeah.
So we've all been to networking events and you find out about what someone does and you're like, oh, I'd really like to recommend this person in the future if anything comes up, but there's just too many people to manage. Like they become a LinkedIn connection and then they just kind of like fall off into the ether. So I've built this thing where using Notion forms, I collect what they're good at and also what their goals are, like who they would like to meet, etc. Everyone goes into this database and I'm basically now like a matchmaker. So if I find two people who should meet based on their interests and goals, I pair them up and they both get sent an automated email about them and they can choose to like chat or not, which is quite cool. So that's probably my new most meaningful way in Notion. And then also another way that I use Notion with my clients, which probably leans a bit more into what you do as well, is I build authority figures. I with authority figures, I help turn their frameworks into digital products in Notion. So typically digital products are done in like Google Sheets or Google Docs or PDFs, but they're not very interactive. Like you can't really turn them into an app-like experience, but with Notion you can. So I trialed this initially when I turned one of my favorite books into Notion frameworks, which is like really cool. And I'm in chats with the author about like releasing that eventually. But I get so many coaches coming to me who are like, can you turn my framework into a digital product? I'm like, yeah. And it's cool because that is truthfully, if you're, for me at least, if you're going to start out, you want you want to start out with the most scalable thing running on autopilot first, which is the digital product that doesn't need you to be there, and then you upsell for where you have to trade time for money. But yeah, it's just a use case that not many people think about, but are starting to think about more. Yeah, how
That's,
how about
I had
you?
no idea you did that actually. We should definitely chat more offline because that is something I know a lot of people are trying to achieve, which is this idea of productizing their knowledge, and putting it into something that's understandable by other people, either for scaling their time or scaling their income, or yeah, like I say, leveraging your expertise at scale is something that I'm in the process of doing with my membership, and then the members of my membership are trying to do for themselves. And that's what I love about tools like Notion, is that you can kind of store all of your stuff in there and then at some point bring it together. And then I've created like lead magnets in Notion that have been downloaded, one of them I think nearly 1,000 times, or the emails have been opened. I can't remember exactly, but I stopped looking at it about 18 months ago because I just wasn't really working on that project anymore. But I was like, this is so cool that this is just in Notion, because if I spot a typo, it doesn't live in everybody's Dropbox folders. It lives on my screen, and I can just change it, and it automatically changes on everybody else's side as well, which is obviously what Google Docs is. But Notion, you can just make so much more, yeah, aesthetically pleasing, I think. So yeah, that's really interesting. And on that digital product front, maybe we should talk about that, because I know so many people would love to either just create digital products or sell them as a passive income stream. Have you seen that to be successful from people? Like, do you have any kind of case studies that you think this person's done really well with this particular thing, and what was that?
Yeah, I mean, you in pop culture, you can kind of see it. So I predicted this a while ago about influencers eventually turning to Notion like templates to like digitize their physical things. So I think the most prominent out there is probably Grace Beverly with her productivity method planner, physical planner that she's now turned into a Notion template, which is just doing numbers. And that is, yeah, that is a trend that I'm seeing elsewhere. Then an old client of mine, Montel B, she had the first, I should say, era edition of her Notion template, and then we worked together to make it better, basically. And that second edition is also just doing numbers because she already had like a popular YouTube presence as well. So I think it is 100% a trend that makes sense. And you don't have to be a popular influencer to do it. You can have silent influence within your niche. I heard about a like you wouldn't know them, they're not famous at all, but they were sort of they had influence within the cheerleading community. And so they basically built a Notion system that for cheerleading teams to manage all of the stuff that they do, sold that 1,000 times for $1,000, and just by emailing people and showing them what they can do, like solving a real problem within their niche, and like, I mean, do the maths.
Wow.
So
You
yeah.
make an interesting point there though, which I think I really want to like hone in on for people, is this idea of like emailing people feels counterintuitive to this scalable thing that you've created. It's like, I've created this scalable thing, therefore it should just be like downloaded whilst I sleep, like this idea of passive income. But what I know to be true, and this cheerleading company do as well, is people often don't take action until they're kind of asked or like feel really like, oh, this is for me. And in order for them to know it's for them, they need to be educated. They need to be kind of like see something multiple times or go through a sales process, which has opportunities for them to like count themselves in versus decide it's not for them. And I think this is where a lot of people who have an idea for a digital product, and I've been here myself, can trip up is like having this idea, just assuming it's really valuable and cool, spending ages building it, popping it up and no one downloads it. And you're like, okay, that was not great use of my time. Whereas I think what Grace Beverly has done and what your cheerleading example have done is like take an existing thing that's proven, that has valid kind of benefits to its users, and then go on, there might be a simpler, cheaper, quicker way of doing this. Let's build it out and then let's actually probably test it with people or send it to people for free or whatever. And at that point, they were probably able to increase the price to $1,000 per unit. And then, you know, and I guess what I'm trying to get at here is like, there is no quick shortcuts to this work ever. Like I was showing somebody the other day all the things I do in my business, a family member, because they're thinking about doing something similar. And they were like, wow, it's a lot of work, isn't it? I was like, yeah, there's a lot to it. Sorry, I can't just be like, it's just do these two things. It's like, and then this connects to this, and then this connects to this, and then I go here and I go here. And yeah, I think like all this to say, if you want to productize your knowledge, like know what areas people are like constantly needing to see on repeat, know which things can be productized, know which areas go into this document. And I'm struggling a bit with this at the moment with my membership. It's like I have so much in my head about what they can do, they can't do, not can't do, as in they could do in their businesses. And I assume that they have the same level of knowledge that I have when I share ideas. And then it's like, oh no, I have to teach them the framework before the framework before the framework. And then I have to get that framework on the page and then explain how that connects to the other one. And I'm like, oh, this is a lot of, like scaling my time takes a lot of time to get to the point that it scales.
Oh my gosh. No, I literally know I know exactly what I mean. It's like how do you download like 5+ years of like consuming endless podcasts and like just business resources into like someone else immediately? Like it is a lot of work.
I wish there was a secret, like a pill. You can be like, I really want the best for you. Please just take this pill and you'll know all the good things you need to know. But yeah.
No, but that's exciting though. What have been some of the most exciting moments for you, or like learning moments for you while building out your membership?
Yeah, the early ones were actually back in the end of 2023. I did this survey for my newsletter readers and I said, what are you struggling with the most? And there were these really clear pain points across my responses that I realized were like the seeds of what I now call Authority Club. And those were knowing what I stand for, knowing how to kind of put that into something tangible, and then creating demand for my service, which sounds really obvious. It's just the business path. But the fact that I was able to see in writing people's words and like pain points in black and white at scale at which I was able to get survey responses, which is another conversation we could have as to how I got people to decide to help me with the survey. But then I took those things and I realized like, okay, if I try and take out of the equation all the things that aren't those things, can I still get people a result? Like, can I still get them a result without teaching them, like to our point before, everything I know? Or can I still get them a result with just teaching them B, D, F, H, right? Like, does that work? And so I taught that in a cohort-based course using a combination of live trainings, workbooks, and like a community support system. And then that I did that twice last year. And then the start of this year decided to kind of remove the cohort-based component and just have it as an always on container, which has been really rewarding because it means that you can meet somebody one day and the next day they can join your membership, right? Like they don't have to wait for the next intake. The challenge has been going, well, if everybody's not starting on the same day, how do you get that information available to everybody when they need it? And so that has been my hardest part. Not enrolling members, that's actually gone really well, like so far, which has been great. There's a lot of interest and demand, and I've been doing this for a while, so I have a good network of those people. But what I've struggled with, and this is on me, is just how do I share enough that it's enough information, but not too much that it's overwhelming? And how do I
Mm.
share it in a format that makes sense to people? And everybody has different learning styles. And so, yeah, we're about 6 weeks in, and like people are making changes, they're putting things together, they're like, getting results. But there are some people that are like, oh, how do I do this? And I realize I don't have an FAQ for everything yet. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. And how do you also um kind of deal with the thing where like people actually showing up to meeting times versus maybe people watching the recordings or saying that they're going to watch the recordings? So
Mm.
how do you deal with that aspect of like what like running membership in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's again early-ish days. So we've only had, I think, 4 live calls, and their attendance has been good, but there are definitely people that haven't been at all of them, or maybe even half. My mentality is like I've designed it in a way that they can catch up on their own time, and if they miss a call, they're not behind. Like there's a
Yeah.
reason they missed that call. Life got in the way.
Yeah.
There was another priority. My membership shouldn't have to be the top priority in their life. And so it's about saying, how do I create a space where there's forgiveness, acceptance, we're here when you need it. But if you decide to go all in, of course, you're going to get more from it. Of course, your business is going to benefit. You're going to have stronger connections with the community. I'm going to know more about what you're up to so I can help you more. But if you only attend a bit of them, you can still get a result. Like that's my hope and intention. I think if you don't feel that way about your membership, you shouldn't have it as like an always on thing. You should probably have it as like a start and end so that you can contain that momentum to a certain amount of time. And that's how I did it before, which was, yeah, the pros and cons of each. Do you have a, because you have a membership, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. So I am struggling with the attendance part. Like people are still paying. They're
Mhm.
not necessarily showing up. I'm like, okay. Which is quite interesting. I think that might be on me in terms of time zones, because with Notion being quite a just more of a thing in the States. I have to I've done it at a time where it's 2:30 over here, which is more like 10:30 over there in New York time. So it's like people, but it's still like 7:30 if at a reach LA time. But then also now a lot of my clients are coming from the Middle East. So I don't want to catch them too far at their work day. So I have to pick a time where
Mhm.
that kind of works for most people. So that's an interesting one to navigate, really.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's a work in progress, and I will continue to try that.
Yeah, I did a lot of market research before I rolled out this version of my membership and asked people of all the potential membership benefits that can
Yeah,
offer, what are valuable to you and what are less valuable. And there was unfortunately no like in the data obvious choices and losers, but there was some patterns. And I then went, well, what do I want to do? What do I think works? And I think a lot of people join memberships not just for the live calls, they join them for the identity that that membership provides them, the access to the people who are in it. The asynchronous times sometimes are just as valuable as the synchronous. So I guess this is my way of asking you to like think about for yourself, maybe what else are they maybe getting that you're not
mm,
seeing that they're experiencing, and then how can you amp that side of it up a bit more if time zone thing continues to be a challenge, which it sounds like it could be.
yeah,
What else is on offer for them?
yeah, yeah. So that is a work in progress. And I think I it's starting to become a priority in terms of focusing on again properly. I probably can relate as a solo-ish business owner. Like there are only so many like projects you can prioritize at the time. So I've been prioritizing, I suppose, offloading podcast editing responsibilities onto an assistant who has now kind of joined me. But then what we were saying earlier, it takes so much time to offload all of the information into your brain into a way that's like digestible for another person. And so that has been taking up most of my time. And so that is the next thing in my priority list because I then need to ideally create I like do a lot of cost benefit analysis while scaling my business because then I now need to create enough money from the membership or elsewhere in my business to ideally replace the outgoing expense of hiring this podcast assistant so it's like a sustainable
So relatable.
It's like you're like, okay, but the way that I paid for the podcast assistant initially was I cancelled my co-working membership, which was roughly the same amount. So you can see like the
Mhm.
was it like taking from Peter to give to Paul type of vibes in terms of running your business. I don't know if that's relatable at all for other people, but yeah.
No, I think it's a good one to bring up. Like there was a sense of um, industry burnout or like malaise I was picking up on last year. And I don't know if it's just because I was reading some of this stuff or if it was just around me, but there was a lot of people who've been kind of peaked or had a moment during the pandemic in their online business. And then we're now 3, 4 years on and they were like, I'm constantly adding costs to my business. Like if it's another team member, if it's another product, or if it's another membership, every single offer that you create has its own infrastructure. Like the
Mhm.
podcast editing suite. Like I was speaking to someone the other day, I was like, why don't you use Riverside for these? And I'm like, I would love to, but I don't necessarily need to have another tool stack that I have to have a learning curve for that potentially has a another cost associated with it, right? I don't have a podcast. If I had a podcast, then I would, right? So it's like anyway, where am I going with this is like the kind of mental load that we're carrying. So often we then hire people to help us either carry some or do some of these things for us, but then there's slightly increased pressure on our finances to pay for them. That means we need more sales. And often we then overcomplicate our business to get more sales, and then we need more team. And it's like, I think I'm just repeating back to you what you were saying here,
Yeah.
but I feel you. And I had to make this decision early this year because last year I kind of let go of a team member who I'd been working with for a long time and we had a great relationship. I was just like, I just don't know if I need all this support right now. I'm going to go like lean. I'm going to strip back. I'm going to just do less. And then by the end of the year, I was like, I'm ready to go again. I want to do more again. So now I've hired somebody and I'm like having to remind myself, like, this is a commitment to growth. Doesn't mean I have to have a huge business, but it does mean that, yeah, the revenue goal is higher. Like
Yeah.
that's just the reality.
Yeah, literally. And it's so interesting. I'm meeting more and more people who, like myself, like I don't dream of having an agency one day, like very similar to the people that like you support. I'm like, that sounds like a nightmare. I don't like managing people. I don't. So I think that is the goal that we are taught that we should want, but it's really great to see a lot more people talking about like lifestyle businesses in that sense of just like a business that works for you and like aligns with your values and energy levels, truthfully. Because yeah, you don't always need to grow a massive team to run a successful business. I'm working with a lot more like consumer product good brands these days, and they're doing like seven figures with like 17 members. So,
Can happen. Yeah. I
yeah.
always think it's like, how do you want to spend your days? Like,
Yeah.
do you want to spend your days in meetings, training team? I have clients who love that side of their business. Then great, grow a team. Do you want to be writing and thinking and reading? And how can you then earn enough from writing? Does that need to be your main thing, or could it be a vehicle to another thing? Or could it be your hobby while like do you enjoy creating slides and presenting workshops? Then have a membership. But if you don't, then how else could you do this thing? I know I've really oversimplified those options to your career because there's obviously so many, but yeah, I always just think it comes down to like the units of energy and time that you have in your day, and are you happy with how that looks? And for the most part with my week, I'm like, yeah, that was a great week. Maybe a bit too much context switching, but you know.
Yeah, no, I hear it. Like I literally built a calculator to like work this out for myself not too long ago. I put in all of my I can share it with you afterwards. So it's my journey to six figures, I like to call it. So I put in my offers and how much time they realistically take, how much time I realistically want to work in a week. And through all of the calculations, I was like, okay, if I want to meet this goal, this is what my ideal month should look like.
Mhm.
I don't think people do that calculation a lot, but I think it's worth it just to be realistic about like, okay, well, how much time does all of this take
Right.
realistically? And
Yeah.
how much am I charging for that as well? And like, do I need to raise my prices if I want to meet like certain goals, etc.
Mhm. And being okay with some of those offers being either like lower for your price per hour, but you do them because they give you energy, or they lead to the clients that you charge more per hour. Or maybe one of them is like a long-term play, because if I like, for example, with Authority Club, my membership, if I add at the time I've spent getting to the launch I had, yes, it was a great launch financially, but it's also the time investment and then the time invested in delivering on that launch, right? So it's like viewed in that context, it earns me less than my one-to-one.
Mhm.
But from another lens, one day if it's, more streamlined and there are more members and I don't have to create everything from scratch each time, then it becomes much higher paid per hour type of vibe. Not that I'm really doing that calculation. But yeah, I just think these decisions are so personal, and that's why it's hard to give like pricing guidance without knowing all of these aspects of somebody's like energy, time availability, skills, enjoyment, goals. It's like there's no such thing as the right price. It's the right price for you at that time in your business based on what else you're doing.
Literally, and like you don't want to ideally, you don't want to create another job for yourself in the sense of like you're living to work rather than like working to like live in that sense. Like if you kind of do the upfront planning and then like are just strategic about where you're spending your time, it can 100% like pay off in the long run.
Mhm. Yeah, strategic is the perfect word for it. I feel like we could chat all day, but we're coming up to the time we said, so we should like, yeah, wrap up with what you're working on in this next phase as we're coming into like Q3, which is really strange to say. But yeah, what's next for Frances?
So right now, I think my top priority is still growing my podcast. So I have a podcast for and by London's business babes called Coffee and Oysters, where I basically every week interview London female founders about business, but also like lifestyle topics such as like what brands are you loving right now, like what are your favorite coffee shops in London, and it's a lot of fun and I'm really excited to continue to see it grow, but I fully believe in the idea, and so right now I am prioritizing on scaling that as much as I can,
Hence
really.
the podcast editor.
Yes, exactly, because I realize the amount of time it's taking to edit, I should really be spending in marketing. So, yeah. How about yourself?
Very cool. Well, I created two quite big things in my business over the last 6 months, Authority Club and Monday Mornings, which is my other newsletter.
So
And
good, by the way.
thank you. Yeah, so I've got two sort of business babies, so to speak, as well as my one-to-one coaching company. So I'm not in the market to create anything new, but I am looking to find ways to streamline things for, improving things, making them tighter, better, stronger, faster, whatever adjective makes sense in that context. And I'm wanting to do some travel this summer, so I feel like I'm going to take a slightly slower Q3 and then probably come back Q4 to grow Authority Club with some new members again.
Incredible. Very exciting. Where are you headed travel-wise?
Amsterdam, Malaga, maybe Istanbul.
Oh, okay.
Haven't booked some of the above, so subject to change.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Very exciting.
Yeah, but let's get everybody over to see your podcast. I'll put some links and vice versa, I'm sure. So yeah, this has been so fun and can't wait to have you join Authority Club as an expert guest coming
Yeah,
up.
very excited. Yeah, I'm excited to share with my audience. I'm sure like prime audience for the Authority Club as well.
Yay. All
Yeah,
right, nice to see you today.
yeah, thank
Get
you.
better.
You too.